Call the meeting to order. Good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Architectural Board Review, Village of Lake Bluff, and it is April 1st. No fooling. Okay, Michael, so roll call, please.
Okay. Member Dahlman.
Here.
Member Stradiff.
Here.
Member Wicks.
Here.
And Chair Hunter.
Here.
And members Cottrell, Kerouac, and Deegan are absent.
Okay, well, we still have a quorum.
Yes.
Consideration of the March minutes. Anybody have any comments, corrections? Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay, then we need a,
I move that we approve it.
okay, that's what we need, a second.
I'll second. I wasn't there, but I'll
Okay.
second it.
All right, moving on.
Okay, so, yep,
Yeah, all in, yeah,
go ahead and you say it.
all in favor
Aye.
signify by saying aye.
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 Okay.
Okay. Non-agenda items and visitors, anybody in the audience or online that would have an issue that is not on the agenda tonight? If so, let us know or let Michael know.
There is one.
Oh. You know the drill.
Mickey Collins, 217 East Scranton. And I'm really here on behalf of a friend who's out of town, so I promised that I would come and reiterate her concerns. First of all, it's about, the water reclamation project at the beach, which is actually shaping up to be really nice. I have to thank all of you. Thanks, Mike, for everything you're doing, because I think that we're all going to be very happy. But Nan Caldwell was here at one of your previous meetings when you were talking finishes and things, and she just wanted to make sure that the final paint colors were all selected and approved by all of you. And she's very concerned about the conduit that's on the building, that most of it should just be removed, I think. It was for an old vending machine, for a light that isn't there, and things like that. And those, make sure that they're going to clean it all up, take it away, and they're going to redo that railing on the balcony to make that look better. I'll throw in a couple of my own concerns. I hope the tennis balls get removed from the louvers. I hope they paint the generator enclosure with that bright white one that it's also rusty, and I think that's going to, if that doesn't get painted, it's going to be a real attention getter and an eyesore. And that's basically it. I did, I've expressed to Mike my concern that I kind of took my eye off this ball, and I realized later that the planting beds down there at the base that will screen those buildings didn't end up as deep as I had hoped, but they're being formed up, so they are what they are. I just hope that they're very careful about all the gravel that's being thrown around there. I mean, it looks like they're kind of getting a little sloppy, and that area has to have really good soil to support new plantings so that they're successful and they don't die like the old ones. So I would just be concerned about that. And that's all I have to say. Thank you all for your
Okay,
your
let me
work on
just
this.
make one comment. We went through the color scheme on the big building a number of times, and there was some disagreement that we had with Water Reclamation District, and they would not change it. It's not bad, but it could have been better. So we tried. And Nan was here, I think, for that. I remember when she was here.
Yeah, I remember she came and kind of spent the whole meeting there, and I think she thought at the end of that meeting that they were going to come back maybe with some things, but evidently no. It sounds
No.
like, okay.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
I think we're all going to be pleased once we see that, the beach is going to feel more open, and the yacht club, when it finally gets built, will also be back a little bit, and, hopefully it's going to be just a wonderful asset, so.
Okay.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. All right, anybody else online?
No.
Okay, so moving right ahead then, the next item is the consideration of fire sprinkler exemption request for Tolato at 900 Armored Drive. And the process we'll use is whoever here is representing Tolato, make your case up there in a short version, and then we'll have Seth make his case, and then we'll discuss it here, and Is that about right?
Staff can
then
summarize
staff
our
will summarize it,
recommendation,
right.
and then you guys can ask questions
Yeah.
and discuss. Yeah.
So, who's representing Torlado? Okay.
Good evening.
Thank you.
So my name is Nick Standiford. I'm a land use and zoning attorney at Shane Banks. This is my second time up here requesting an exemption. This is a different property.
Remember your
If that's
face.
how you remember me. I also live nearby in case you've seen me around town. But I work down in the city at 70 West Madison. I'm pleased to be here tonight representing Torlado Real Estate for in its request for a fire sprinkler exemption. Tonight, we're going to give I tried to make it a short version, but I think it's an interesting house, historic house, and so we did bring out some people to talk about the house and provide some interesting architectural details that I think this body will find compelling. So tonight we have here Tom Rajkovic. He's right here. You want to raise your hand, Tom? He is an architect. He specializes in renovations of historic structures. He placed a number of homes on the Register of Historic Places. He teaches at Notre Dame as a Lindenberg Scholar, who is the architect of this manor house here. He's responsible for the interior work that occurred in 1996, and you'll hear about that here tonight, and it's a very interesting presentation. Next, you'll hear from Judy Vaughn. Judy, you want to raise your hand? She is the facilities manager for the last 15 years at the house. She's responsible for coordinating the fire safety upgrades in the facilities in general. But you'll hear from her talking about all the measures that she's taken to make this place a little bit safer from fire. And last, you'll hear from Michael Perlberg, He's the chief legal officer at Torlado, and he'll talk about the Torlado family business and his risk management perspective on this whole fire sprinkler concept. Last, actually, we'll break in. This is the house here. As you all know, it's now home to the Torlado business. We'll get into this in a little bit. This is from I would call it the backside, the side that you don't drive up into. As you can see, it's a lovely historic structure, and we'll get into the architectural details here in a second. But we can go to the next slide here, if you could, Mike. Thank you very much. So, I am a history and political science double major at Michigan, and my dad said that was a recipe for pre-unemployment. And so, but the good news is that finally I get to use my history background, and I get to present to you a slide about the history of this historic structure. So, in 1916, the property was purchased by then 23 years old, Philip D. Armour III, and his wife Gwendolyn Condon. And it took quite a bit of time to build the structure. In 1932, architect Harry Lindenberg completed the Tudor Gothic manor. It took a long time because the war was ongoing at the time. In 1953, then the property was turned over, sold to United Educators, a publishing company. It wasn't kept in the manner that it deserved, and in 1995, the Torlados purchased it and hired Tom right here to restore the interior. That was and then in Tom's, because of Tom's work and the vision that Torlado had, they were able to get this home listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So a big accomplishment. I found a picture of the plaque online. This is a photo from the Lake Bluff History Museum of the house. I don't know when it's dated, but it seemed old because it was in black and white. And then you have the grounds map here. So that's the history of the property from a high level. But now I'm going to let Tom get into it and kind of go into more detail about the exterior finishes on the structure, and then he'll take you inside into the interior and describe what we're working with on the inside of this historic home.
Thank you.
So, Tom? Next slide, please.
And I'm going to do my best to keep this brief because my part of the context has more to do with what the approach was to the restoration of the house and why this house is significant. I could talk about Lindenberg literally for 2 hours, and you don't want me to do that. So Lindenberg's born in 1879, so he designs this house when he completes the house when he's in his 40s, late 40s, early 50s. But he starts it when he's 35 years old. Lindeberg's work tended to be uniquely his. He had a kind of a signature way of making architecture. He's a New York architect that has no formal training as an architect at all. He worked in the office of McKinney & White, which was the preeminent classical architectural office in the country, from 1901 to 1906, so for 5 years. So he's about 27 years old when he starts his own practice. He does a building that it was known particularly for having a roof that mimicked the appearance of thatch. So that it was wood shingle, but the edges were sort of rounded over. We've seen it, you can see it on some houses on the North Shore. He even wrote an article about that, and so in his early career, he was doing these kind of English Cotswoldian sort of houses. And that's in New York, and practicing out of New York City. He did a total of 9 structures on the North Shore, including the Anwensia Country Club. But that Cotswoldian look was something that he became known for in New York, but particularly this thatched roof effect, which was wood shingle to make the roof of buildings. He met Philip Armour in New York City around 1916, so right when Armour was getting married to Gwendolyn, or when Philip Armour was getting married to Gwendolyn. And I think the Armours initially were interested in something like that, but Lindeberg was also doing, right across the street from Anwensia, a house for one of the other Armours. And that one had that thatched roof effect. And during the course of the construction of Tangley Oaks, that house suffered a roof fire. So these wood shingles actually burned, and it was after that period. So Lindeberg was sort of making his reputation on this thatched roof appearance for his houses. And suddenly he finds himself being dissuaded from doing that because you don't want the reputation of being the architect that causes that to happen. He then switched to using Ludovisi tile, which are those baked flat, in this case a flat English tile. So it's clay terracotta. It's baked in a coal-fired oven for about 7 to 10 days, at least then they were. He did that because Adler basically was hired to fix the Armour estate across from Anwensia Club, that the roof of which had burned, the famous house that Mr. T subsequently owned. And so Lindeberg's later work was with that tile, and I mention all of that piece of the history, particularly because the tile are fireproof. And Lindeberg went to that as a piece of a kind of a correction. There was a concern, particularly with boilers happening in buildings and the new technologies of boilers from about 1901 to about 1930, that you needed to make a building more sort of fire resistant in every possible way. So Lindeberg travels actually with the Armours to England, and they see a particular building, which one of Lindeberg's colleagues in New York, a guy named John Russell Pope, another very sort of renowned architect, had gone to this same house. It's called Compton Winyates. It's a Tudor house, a late 15th, early 16th century house, literally during the reign of Henry VII. They go and see it, and they fall in love with it. And Lindeberg is familiar with it because John Russell Pope has just done something with it, but also there are other architects looking at it. It starts to get published in books in the 20s. And the Armours say, we want our house to evoke the character of that house. This house, therefore, stands unique in Lindeberg's oeuvre. It's the only house that he made overtly, if you will, stylistic. He made it imitate, almost replicate the sort of Tudor architecture of Compton Winyates. Later in his career, his work is much more sort of, it's traditional. If you know the Anwensia Club, that's kind of emblematic of what his architecture looked like. So the brick color stayed the same, but it was rare that Lindeberg had such an overtly, stylistically replicative approach. So this building stands in his long career, it stands as a sort of a unique example of that moment in his development as an architect, which made it especially important. So the night that I met Anthony Turlato, he invited me to come up. He wanted to talk to the Lindeberg expert about this house he was buying. We went through it, and I told him these things and many others. And what he said is, I want this house because we import wine. And this, I can bring our guests and our clients to this house, and they will see the same kind of long historic tradition that they know of in the country houses in France and England and Italy, where they produce wine or where many of their clients are. And so he said, I want to restore the house, but I want to do the restoration with a light hand, because the house itself has basically, and he was making this observation, which is a laudable thing, that the house had acquired this sort of patina, that it had aged. And so he said, we're not going to take this house and make it look like the day it was built. It should allow itself to express that age. But at the same time, we have to give it good care. He said, because you know what, Tom? He said, I'm only a steward of this place. This is a Lake Bluff and even a kind of a Midwest cultural treasure because of Lindeberg's importance. He knew about Lindeberg. He'd looked some things up before he even met me. And then when I told him that this was unique in Lindeberg's oeuvre, he said, all the more important, I'll have it, maybe my kids will have it, but at some point it's part of the cultural and the artistic history of Chicago, of the Armour family, of Lake Bluff. I don't want to get heavy-handed with this. I don't want to become intrusive. I don't want to make it look like we recreated the house. I just want to take care of it. So we did a number of things on the house, but the house, the construction of the house is bearing wall masonry. It's the vitrified clay tile, pyroblock, telegraph tile, with an outer wythe of brick. The roof obviously is the Ludovisi clay tile shingles. The floor slabs are cast-in-place concrete floor slabs. And then the plaster is parged over about a 1.5-inch furring to the underside of the concrete floor slab for the ceilings. A number of the interior walls are also the same telegraph tile. So if you go and wrap on the water, or if you have to run conduit, you're literally running it through that because you have to trench it. So we tried to be absolutely minimally sort of intrusive in terms of anything we did. Electrical work tended to have to be done wireless because we didn't want to run conduit through the building. The benefit of that, though, was we were able to kind of just have a sort of a gentle touch, but keep the integrity of everything. All the furniture in the house is still mostly the furniture that the Armours had purchased with Lindeberg when they did this European excursion to see this house. Philip Armour's wife went into a sort of melancholy after their first child, who was born in 1916, the year after they got married. She died in 22 or 24, about at the age of 6 or 8 years old, she died, the daughter. And then they had a second child born in 24 that died, basically at birth. And so they literally owned the house until I think 1950, and then it was sold to United Educators, the Armours did. But they lived in it for a very, very short period of time. So all the furniture that United Educators basically inherited when they purchased the house still exists there. So we've had, through connections that I have at the Art Institute, we had curators from the Art Institute's Decorative Arts Department looking at the furniture. We had wallpaper that's in a couple of the rooms that's 18th century hand-painted wallpaper in a sort of chinoiserie design, sort of Chinese design, was restored, including injections of rabbit skin glue to re-adhere it to the walls. Everything about what we did to the house, though, was about making sure that that the materials of the house, which age naturally and age well, were also not taken apart or intrusively modified as a way of maintaining the house. So again, there's sort of the envelope package of the house, from the roof to the wall floor system in many of the walls.
Yeah, sure.
So all those interiors, and you see the central stair hall is actually a limestone wall all the way up the height of it. We have some heavy timber. That's actually salvaged heavy timber that was brought in by Lindeberg. So anything we did in the house was intended to kind of basically just assure that if the wood needed to basically be rejuvenated with linseed oil, it was sort of rubbed with linseed oil to get it back to healthy. That was essentially the process we used through the whole thing. And again, operating under an understanding with Anthony Terlato and also with his sons, that this was something that they understood themselves to be sort of shepherding down the road into the future. I'm going to turn it over to our next speaker, and I'm happy, obviously, at the end to answer any questions.
Thank you.
So if you didn't notice on the slide here, it looks like I had on the last slide, it looks like Tom corrected me on the year Mr. Lindeberg was born. That's how much of an expert he is on Lindeberg. I didn't realize I had a typo there. I think he said it was 1879, so good eye on that. So let the record reflect his birth was 1879. So next up is Judy Vaughn. She'll go to the slide here talking about the existing fire safety measures. She'll talk about what she did in 2022 to upgrade the fire system, and then what they do regularly to keep the building safe from fire. So come on up, Judy.
Hi. This is not my forte, public speaking, so I'll do my best. So in 2022, we upgraded the system. Everything was replaced, the fire panels, the strobes. We went from 52 smoke detectors to 105, and added an intercom system. the amazing part, or the part that stands out the most, is if you're in the building, when 105 smoke detectors go off, it is so loud, no one's going to want to even stay in there. And then we have a loud announcement that goes through the whole building, please vacate the building. For inspections, we go through all of it. Keith Technologies, they were just in there 2 weeks ago. They had 2 to 3 guys in there for 7 hours. They check every smoke detector, the whole building. They go through it once a year. And they do our monitoring as well for the fire department. Dependable Fire, they do our fire extinguishers once a year and the Ansel system twice a year. And MCOR does our HVAC. They go through all of our systems. The boiler is cleaned. The boiler before fall has gone through. They go through, check our radiators. And the Illinois Fire Marshal, they come in every other year and check our boilers. The fire department we have a lock box on the building with the fob and a key, and they have the key and a fob at the department as well, so they can access our building anytime they need to. And daily, there's always someone in the building. We have house security that comes in the morning, they come in the evening, and they come in the weekends as well to check the building. They do walkthroughs in the morning and in the evening on the weekends. So there's always someone in the building, and they're always keeping an eye on the building, as well as we love this building. I've been there for 20 years. I worked for the Trolatos. And they're very proud of the building, and they care about their employee safety.
Thank you.
We have one more, So then we have one more witness, Mr. Perlberg, I can't get that right, sorry. Will be here right now to talk about the family business. Obviously, this is not a home where people live and sleep anymore, it's a business, and he'll talk about that now.
I'm a witness?
Does he have to be sworn?
Not tonight. This is not a public hearing.
No, of course not. Anyway, thank you for your, thank you all for your time and consideration. I'm here on behalf of the executive team of the Trolatos. As you're probably aware, we're very proud to be like a Lake Bluff business and a very prominent Lake Bluff business. We sell almost 2 million cases of wine and spirits, and on the back label of every one of those, we proudly say we're from Lake Bluff. And so we have, I think, established a very strong reputation among the industry until people know Lake Bluff, and we're proud to be part of it. As Tom suggested, Tony Trolato, who passed away a few years ago, sought out this building, sought out this location because it reminded our import, he made it sound like it was a bigger entertainment than's happening in general. But when we have a business meeting with foreign owners, oftentimes from Italy, France, Spain, Australia, New Zealand, they come in, this makes them feel very much like at home. So we're very proud of our business, our reputation, and of, most importantly, our home office. And the Trolatos, I always say, our 2 most important assets as a company are our people and our facility, our building at Tingley Oaks. And the Trolatos would never do anything that would want to jeopardize the safety of either of those places. As Tom mentioned, we feel like we're a steward of this building, and we would never suggest and want an exemption that we didn't think that would cause danger at all to our people or to the building that we hold so dear to our hearts. Trolatos live in the area. It's the 4th generation business, and the 4th generation was just born. It's continuing to be born, and we plan on being here for a long time. Quickly about me, I live in the area as well, and I'm proud to be the chief legal officer of the company and executive of the company for 7 years, and I plan on, we work there every day. We never would want to do anything that would jeopardize any of our safety. I think that's it, Nick. Anything else that you'd like me to testify to? Any questions for me or for the Trolatos? They're traveling, otherwise they would like to be here themselves, so they sent me. Yeah.
We'll bring up questions later if we have them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Last slide.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so, I could go through the standards, but we did take a lot of time in our narrative that's in your binders here that Judy put together so nicely. So I'm not going to go through all of those, but I think if you look at the FSCI expert report that was prepared after doing a walkthrough of the property, it looks like they seem to indicate that we do meet almost all, if not all, the standards. So I think that speaks volumes about the strength of our case for a fire exemption. This is place on the National Register of Historic Places. So it's obviously, like Tom said, you have to have a very light touch, and putting in sprinklers in this building would be the opposite of a light touch. So we did take note of the conditions, or we call them recommendations, in the FSCI report, and we've listed them here for the benefit of this body. So what we've done is, as you note in the staff report too, there's A through G, and then basically there's a H, which is the staff's proposed condition, which is that the property continues to be used as use group B for business. So that would be, just to explain the conditions a little bit, so that would mean that the building would remain exempted from the fire sprinkler requirement, and if it was turned into a different use, then they would come back before you and ask for an exemption, just like we're doing here tonight. And we're happy to comply with that condition. We're also happy to comply with the other conditions that were listed. Just to kind of highlight a few of them, there was one about being in the basement, in the boiler room. There were some doors that it was questioned whether those were fire rated or not. We were able to strip the paint off of them, and the sign underneath it there showed that it was a fire-rated door. So that's good, but we are happy to comply with some of the other, or all of the other conditions. Mike provided us a very good solution for some of the lighting by using these LED lights. So I have a picture of the spec sheet there, and that plays into some of these conditions as well. The only tweak I would make to the conditions is on B. This one requires the building to be in compliance for egress and evacuation. It's not, I don't think it could ever be brought into 100% compliance. So we would agree to have that be relating to the exit signs and emergency lighting, as that was our understanding of the intent of that condition. So we're happy to provide emergency lights and signage. And Judy's contacted some folks already to discuss these proposed recommendations. And it looks like many of them are workable. The only one that is a little bit tricky is G. And so we put together some pictures here. This is on the back balcony, I would call it. And there's this spiral staircase. And it looks like the FSCI's recommendation is that there be some sort of a barrier to shepherd folks down right onto that exit stairwell. So we kind of mocked up a really quick potential guard that would go across and kind of corral people that way. I know that staff thought maybe you put a guard all the way down that balcony there. I think we can try to work out, we can work through this condition. I think we're okay with it. And then once we get to our sprinkler exemption, if we are so granted it, we would work with on the building permit to see which solution could be workable, wouldn't ruin the structure, and would fit the goals of the FSCI report. So I think, long story short, is we believe we satisfy the criteria for an exemption. We are happy to comply with these conditions as modified in number B there, letter B. And we really appreciate everyone's time in looking through our packets, and we welcome any questions.
Thank you.
So we have Seth Sommer of FSCI on the
Yeah.
Zoom. Should we go to him
Let's
for
go
a summary of
to
his
Seth
report and
first.
recommendation? Okay. Yep, Seth, we'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, everybody. Just want to make sure you can hear me okay.
Yeah, we can.
Here, play.
All right. Excellent. Sorry I couldn't make it in person. I did have to get back to my hometown to vote before it closed, before the end of the day. So thank you for allowing me to partake in this. This is my third meeting for these sprinkler exemptions. Again, my name is Seth Sommer. I'm with Fire Safety Consultants. We're the village's consultant to provide a professional evaluation based on the village's amendments to the International Building Code they have adopted, which require all existing commercial buildings and multifamily buildings to have sprinkler systems installed by a certain date. And it does give them relief to an option to seek relief through this process that we're partaking in right now. So I just wanted to say excellent presentation by the applicant's team. There's such a rich and beautiful history of this property. It's Judy can probably tell you when I walked in there, I was just like a kid in a candy store. I have an architectural background, and that was my dream all along, to be a architect, and I ended up on this side of things. But it's just jaw-dropping, the stature of the structure and the amazing, beautiful inside, and just what a great property. So we definitely recognize the historical significance of this property. We did have an opportunity to walk through the entire property, which was great. Judy was a fine host and showed us everything. And if anybody wants any wine, I know where you can go. Okay. So, our evaluation, I'll just take you through it. I don't know if everybody had a chance to read our report. Obviously, the applicant did, and did a wonderful job of summarizing at the end there. But I'll just hop through it real quick so we can get to the good part here. So we do recognize that trying to get a sprinkler system throughout this structure is next to impossible, not to mention the damage that it would do to the structure and the aesthetics, as well as, trying to get through some of the floors and walls would be just an absolute nightmare. And I just fear what would happen if you even tried to do it on this property. So on the site, it's definitely situated away from any adjacent structures. It's a large building, for sure, but it is, not near anything else if there were something to happen there. There are a few hazards within the building. You've got the commercial kitchen, which does have a hood and fire suppression system. So as far as that goes, it's, relatively safe. That's just a potential hazard. And then you've got, furniture, furnishings throughout. It's very well appointed on the inside, and it's pretty rich and opulent. And there's some furnishings throughout, which makes sense. But so those are some of the minor hazards within. We consider the occupancy a business occupancy. I think there were some questions when we originally got involved of is this an assembly use when they have showings, or potential clients or distributors, whoever they may have on site. They may have some larger gatherings, but the property does lend itself. It is a big property. People are pretty spread throughout. There is not really a assembly space inside of the building. There is a dining room, which has a rather large dining table in it. And although it can seat maybe 20 people, it's not meant to house over 50 people at a time in any one given room. So that being said, we see it as a business occupancy, which has, lower life safety requirements. And that's the reason that I bring that up. And as far as there being adequate access for the fire department should something happen here, whether it be a fire or an emergency situation. It is situated in a beautiful neighborhood, and it has its own gravel drive leading up to it, which maybe somebody from the applicant's team could talk about the historic significance of that, because sometimes gravel roads, depending on how they're built and designed, may not support fire apparatus properly. Those can weigh up to like 72,000 pounds. So that would just be my, maybe question to think about, and maybe that's something later on, or maybe something to talk to the fire department about, should they need to get back there. Yes.
Actually, Seth, if I could just interject, I didn't tell you, but I did talk to our fire chief about that. He said they have driven their fire truck, loaded full of water on that driveway, and it's turned out okay. So I guess
Okay,
there's a good
excellent.
base underneath it.
That's great, because it just driving on it, it's got that beautiful sound, those pebbles when you're driving up on it. So it was a question I had, but thank you, Mike, for looking into that. Appreciate that.
Yep.
And then as far as meeting the egress and life safety requirements, the applicants did speak very much to the points we made. It is a large structure. There are a lack of exit signs and emergency lighting throughout. And, I just have to imagine that's due to, some of the electrical challenges as well as, mounting these exit signs above door openings and things is not going to look great or aesthetic or historic. And I'll touch on that a little more when I get done with my summary here. But it does have some redeeming qualities within. It's got the full fire alarm system, and Judy is right. I checked every room that I went into, and there is indeed either a smoke detector, and a couple rooms have heat detectors because it makes more sense than having a smoke detector in there. But 105 throughout the facility. That's basically every room you could stand in had a detector in it. So very well covered by the fire alarm system. And so, in summary, it's an exceptional historic structure. It's built like a tank. I can't say enough about that. It's, very solid construction. There's limited wood throughout. There were some timbers that they mentioned. There's also like an office area in there, which may have some partitions that are, partial height walls that may be built from wood construction, but very minimal throughout. So I just wanted to touch back on those exit signs and emergency lighting, just to throw this out there for the folks, for you folks to consider. We have done work in historic structures before, and I've been part of these. My hometown is Rockford, and we have quite a few historic structures here, and I was building official for a while, so definitely familiar with doing this stuff. And there are provisions, and this would be up to the board and perhaps the building official to consider alternative exit demarcations that may be more historic but serve the purpose of exit signs. And those are features that we can work through perhaps later on after, if the board approves this exemption or, them to do something like this. And the other thing is, if this building is occupied only during the day, and the applicants could speak to that, it's not a house anymore, so you don't have people sleeping there, that's a huge risk, people sleeping there. But hopefully people aren't falling asleep at their desk. Everybody seemed very lively when I walked through there, so I don't think we have to worry about that. But the emergency lighting, so if it's occupied during the day, and let's say the rooms are well lit by the outside. So if you have rooms with tall windows, a lot of glass, a lot of doors, which a lot of these rooms do have, that may be able to substitute for emergency lighting, again, provided that the occupancy is primarily during the day. Understanding there are probably some shows, I'm calling them shows, just when you have, let's say you're entertaining at the property at night, that could be a possibility. So I'm not saying you have to consider that, but it is just something to consider because there are going to be challenges with getting power to those emergency lighting units. And I know Mike did suggest some of those LED retrofit kits, which, hey, maybe those can be put everywhere with minimal being noticeable. I'm just not sure exactly, but those are the things I wanted to point out. We do believe that, if all these features are put in, we feel it's going to be relatively safe. It's an office occupancy. The people work there on a fairly regular schedule, and I know Judy told me a lot of folks work from home actually. But the people working there know the ins and outs of the building and how to get out of the building in case of an emergency. So, short of any visitors or anything being there, there's going to be some rare circumstances where people may not be familiar with it. And that's, again, our suggestion for the exit signs and emergency lighting to be considered. All right, I am done with my spiel. So any questions on what I said so far?
Nope, thank you, Seth. Once again, very thorough.
Yeah, of course. No problem.
Okay. Mike?
Okay, yeah, so it doesn't leave much for me to say since everyone covered things so thoroughly so far, but I'd just like to summarize our staff recommendation is we're in agreement with what Nick presented here with his edit on B there to, which is basically follow the recommendations in FSCI's report and, you know, that the property, subject to the property continuing to be used as use group B. And, you know, we can certainly work with the applicant on their design for the stair railing and, you know, to find exit signs that are, you know, photoluminescent, glow in the dark, and don't all need to be powered up when they're trying to mount them on solid stone and that type of thing there. And I just want to mention, you know, the reason is we're making this recommendation is because use group B is has a low risk occupancy. There's very few fire deaths in that use group across the U.S. The building is largely fire resistant construction right now, and they're able to make a large number of improvements to fire safety that are much more cost-effective compared to putting in a sprinkler system, which would be very, very expensive to get through that entire old building. So we find it to be more cost-effective to do the fire safety improvements we're suggesting rather than to go to the higher expense for a sprinkler system. And that's all I've got.
Okay. Neil, any comments?
I have a compliment. I thought this binder that you guys put together, Judy, was excellent, and it really led us through the whole process pretty easily, and it was fascinating learning about the armor's financial difficulties when they were building it and their eventual success. I do have one question for you, Judy. There's a statement in here that if there's a fire, Case Securities would immediately notify you, and you'd have the fire department immediately dispatched. What if a fire happens at night when nobody's in the building and you're out of town?
I always have my cell phone on, but if I don't answer my cell phone, they'll dispatch. They call me to ask if they should dispatch, because sometimes there's a communication error with the radios upstairs, so they always call and ask, or if there's a problem with one smoke detector, I'll get a call. But they'll ask me if I want to dispatch. If I don't answer the phone, they automatically dispatch.
That's fine. I have worked with Keith Fisher for years, and he's excellent,
Great, yeah.
and that's a good answer. So I'm in favor of the staff recommendations.
Scott?
No, I have no questions. Thank you for putting together a very thorough presentation.
Sue?
I just had the one question, which is, well, I'm in a couple, but you mentioned on, I think it was point B, that you wouldn't be able to be compliant with all of the egress and evacuation points. And I was just wondering, which ones do you think that wouldn't be able to be complied with?
So Nick and I had talked about that a little bit. You know, I think they just didn't want it to be too open-ended, like where we're going to go in and nitpick every riser height of every stair or step or something like that, or are we focused on certain things?
Okay.
I think we're focused on more the lighting and exit signs and that.
Okay, so there's no other sort of big things that would prevent people from finding their way or getting out or whatever? It's just,
No,
it
I don't
would be
think we
little.
saw anything notable. But
Okay.
I'm sure not everything in an old house is up to today's code for a
Right.
business.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's nothing
Right.
major?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we address a lot of those in the other recommendations as well, like, they talk about the doors and having, you know, multiple, what do you call them? Like the different latches and things, and to
Okay.
remove some of that.
Okay.
So there's other conditions that we can comply with that'll solve some egress problems as well.
Okay. All right, and then, there's one other one I was wondering about. Oh, when you were talking about the dispatching, when the fire alarms go off, is it automatically alert the fire department? Or is it fall?
Goes to key security.
Okay, and the security
Will
people?
call me, if I don't answer, they dispatch immediately.
Okay,
So it's 4 rings, I have to get to that phone.
And then I saw in one of the pictures there was a bed or a bedroom or something. No one really ever sleeps there?
I would like to move in.
All right. It looked like a bed, it looked like there was a bedroom or a bed or something somewhere.
Many years ago.
Okay. Oh, okay, maybe it was an old reference.
There, it's usually a ghost town after 5. People go home, there's no shower, so nobody could, if my wife kicked me out, I wouldn't.
And then, this is sort of maybe a dumb question, but is there a lot of, like, there's a lot of alcohol stored there, or is it?
No, it's not a storage facility. We have samples to give out.
Okay.
To taste a little bit, but.
Okay, but
it's
there's not like a ton,
We have a
it seems
separate-
really
We
flammable,
have-
so I'm
we have
like.
a separate warehouse, we have a separate wine
Okay.
facility in the area that's not at the location.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay.
That it? Okay. I gotta tell you, I went to a Lake Bluff Yacht Club party there probably about 1979, 1980. And I don't think it ever left the Grand Stair Hall, which all by itself is an amazing piece of work. Anyway, so, and I know what she's talking about, the patina, because it already had it then, quite a bit. So I have no other questions. I got another funny sidebar, though. 3 weeks ago, I was in Jackson, Mississippi, of all places. And I went to a Philip Armour meatpacking house that was turned into a blues place where you could have brunch and live music. And if you ever go there, it doesn't look like Harry had anything to do with that meatpacking house. So, anyway, I guess that's it. So, anybody want to make a recommendation that we,
I vote to approve the fire sprinkler exemption, subject to fulfillment of the FCSI and staff recommendations.
second?
Second?
Okay, roll call.
And just, sorry, just for clarification, and that condition includes the applicant's request for modification, so it's clear that it's just for egress and the sign on B. I just want to make sure, right?
Oh, it's this list, isn't it?
Yeah, with
B.
yeah.
Yeah,
It is, and just for clarification, it'll be,
This list on the screen as it relates to.
yeah. Just so we make sure we get the language that the applicant's requesting. That just B is for because that's technically not in the FCI report. But I think it sounds like that's what was originally intended. So but I do just want to make clear for the record, so we get that condition included, that it is specifically, the egress is specifically for the signs, and that condition B, sorry, I can't read, I don't have my glasses. Oh, that red, I know is for.
I can't read it either.
Yeah, so staff had said we were okay with the condition being modified to say, for exit signs and emergency lighting, condition B, that it relates to exit signs and emergency lighting.
Okay.
We
So
just wanna
as
make
it
sure
is,
the
as it is
Yes,
written.
yes,
Okay.
perfect,
Yeah.
okay. Just want to make sure.
You
Okay.
have that, right?
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Okay, sorry. So we have a motion and a second, so we're good. I just want to
Okay,
make sure.
so I'll go to the roll call vote.
Roll call.
Okay. Member Wicks,
Aye.
Member Stradiff,
Aye.
Member Dahlman,
Aye.
and Chair Hunter.
Aye.
Okay, so motion passes 4-0.
Congratulations, that is a great facility, and I'm glad to hear that you're keeping it the way it is.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the history lesson and everything else, that's great. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Next is the consideration of fire sprinkler exemption for 1517 East North Avenue. Right.
Good evening.
Okay, yeah.
My name is Brady Anderson. I live at 526 East Scranton Avenue in Lake Bluff. And I am here on behalf of the North Avenue Condo Association at 15 and 17 East North Avenue. Our association includes 2 3-unit buildings. I am the owner of 2 of the units. My father, Brad, who's here, is the owner of 2 other units. And then Matt Jenkins and Terry Black are the owner of the other 2 units, and they are both owner occupants. Matt has owned and occupied his unit for 25 years. and Terry has owned and occupied her unit, I believe, since 1991, so about 34 years. We're here this evening in regards to our application we submitted, seeking a full exemption to the fire sprinkler retrofit requirement that was adopted by the village for existing multifamily buildings with more than 2 units and existing commercial properties. As I mentioned before, our association includes 2 3-unit buildings, so we are over the threshold by 1 unit and are subject to the ordinance. We have submitted our application addressing all submission requirements, along with information for your consideration, including a copy of the original drawings that Mike Croak found for us, which show the layout and construction of the buildings. And we feel that our request for an exemption is fair, considering that our buildings were built to code requirements and have not had any change in use or undergone a remodel greater than 50% to either building, which would trigger our buildings to be retrofitted under IEBC and IBC requirements. We've reviewed the notice from the village and the materials provided, including the fire sprinkler retrofit guide. I have read all 68 pages, I believe, in here. It was very educational for me. But after reading through the guide, it really appears, at least to me, to be geared more towards commercial properties or much larger scale residential properties, such as high-rise buildings. It states in the guide that for existing apartment buildings, automatic sprinkler systems are required to be retrofitted in all high-rise buildings except where every dwelling unit has exterior access. So I personally lived in each of the units that I owned, and they really live like small single-family houses. There are no common areas to access the units. Each of the unit has 2 means of egress, including a front swinging door and a sliding back door, plus each bedroom has window egress. Additionally, the IEBC applies to existing buildings only when work is being performed, and the IBC is primarily for new construction and requires fire sprinklers in several occupancies, and generally where the highest floor of the building exceeds 55 feet from the lowest level of fire department access, which is far greater than the height of our buildings. This is just information that I pulled from the retrofit guide that I felt was important to share as it relates to our buildings. I've also reviewed a survey that was provided by the village of nearby communities, including Lake Forest, Highland Park, Deerfield, and Libertyville, which show that these communities do not have a specific date mandating fire sprinklers to be installed, but do have more stringent requirements than the international existing building code to install sprinklers only based on the amount of a proposed construction or a change in use, which we have not had either of. So our hardships, so we would face a significant challenge both operationally and financially to retrofit our buildings as they are fully occupied. We've received a quote from USA Fire Protection out of Lake Forest in the amount of $104,715 to install sprinklers. However, we recently learned from, I believe it was Seth who reviewed our application, that the estimate that we got is for an NFPA 13D suppression system that is not even adequate for our type of building. The required suppression system is an NFPA 13R system, which would cost significantly more, as it would likely require new water service to be able to handle the fire sprinkler requirements as well as the domestic water loads. This would be a significant cost that was not even anticipated by the fire sprinkler contractor in their estimate. I also want to note that the estimate does not include plumbing work to install check valves in each unit, an electrician installing wiring for all the electronic devices, and additional expenses would include replacing drywall, insulation, repainting of the interior of the units. The estimate basically is just USA Fire coming in, demolishing the interior of our units, taking out walls, ceiling, just getting the plumbing in place, and then it's on us to hire outside contractors to put it all back together. And that's just on the inside. The outside, with the new water service, we'd have to replace a sidewalk, our courtyard hardscaping, landscaping, and then put it all back together. We've invested a lot as an association to improve, we've replaced the roof, the siding, landscaping, courtyard, so we have to do that all over again. So it'd be a significant challenge and disturbance to all the occupants. And we just feel that the ordinance that's put in place, which is far more stringent than IBC and IEBC requirements, is too extreme for our association, and we sincerely appreciate your consideration of this request. Happy to answer any questions, happy to go through the submission requirements. Whatever you like, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, thank you, Brady. Should we have Seth do the same routine again?
Sure. Seth, could you give us a summary of your report and recommendation there?
I'd love nothing more, of course. I mean, hey, this is what I do for a living, so I love this stuff. So anyway, thanks for sharing for the applicant sharing their perspective on this. These are, multifamily properties. They are 2 3-unit buildings. They're basically 3 little houses side by side, one on each end and one in the middle. You can see they're offset a little bit, and then they kind of mirror each other on the site. So there's 2 buildings there. Of course, it is going to be rather difficult and costly and evasive to add a sprinkler system inside of the building. As you can imagine, there's limited plumbing that's running to the bathroom. So, adding a sprinkler in every room where it would be required would cause a lot of walls and ceilings to be opened up. Obviously, the people living there would be displaced for a period of time. The stuff inside of there may have to be stored off-site. There's a lot of logistics to consider, obviously. We do feel that, based on those drawings that Mike was able to discover, which were great, by the way, they did appear to have a pretty good fire-rated wall between the units. It looked like it was 2 layers of drywall on each side of the wall, which may be equivalent to a 2-hour rating today. It's hard to say for sure how it was actually constructed, but at least an hour separation, maybe 2 hours of separation between the dwelling units. So that was a positive for it as well. As far as hazards within the building, it's just probably like any house. There's going to be some people that are neater than others and have things in there. So it's just our assumption. We did not go inside the properties as well. We did not try to get inside. It was just, we felt that these were occupied units, and we pretty much know based on the floor plans, the layout of the space, and that it would have, pretty typical furnishings inside and everything. So we didn't feel it was necessary to get inside of the building. The occupancy of it is obviously residential, and it's the classification is the same for apartment buildings, and it's apartment buildings of any size, basically. So this designation could apply to 3-unit buildings, 8-unit buildings, 300-unit buildings. It's still the same classification as far as the building code is concerned. We do think that the units meet all of the egress requirements required by the village for existing buildings. And we don't know if there is a full fire alarm system, and that's something that I don't know if the applicant could maybe touch on. A full fire alarm system, while it's not clearly defined what the intent of that is by Lake Bluff's amendments, and maybe Mike, you can comment on that as well. We assume that there are at least smoke alarms as required by state statute, which would be essentially one in every bedroom, one outside of the bedroom or sleeping area, and then one on each floor, as well as a carbon monoxide detector on site. So that really sums up the fire risk analysis. Can the applicant comment on if they have any type of alarm system other than the, smoke alarms, the basic smoke alarms and CO detector?
We have standard smoke alarms. We've checked, we replaced
Okay.
them. A complete fire alarm system, I don't personally understand how we would be able to, so who would get the call, when, if a smoke alarm goes off? If I rent these out I have tenants in 2 of the units in one building, there's an owner occupant in another, who do we pick as being the person to get that call? But what we have in place are, and I asked Mike Croak about what life safety requirements are. I looked at the village website, and they're adequate to those standards, but a complete system we do not have.
Yeah. Yeah, the most important function of the system is to make sure the people in the unit wake up and
Yeah.
evacuate, and monitoring is optional for residential in this situation.
Yeah, no, they worked. We've, in 17 North 2 that I own, I have 8 different alarms in there for 850 square feet or whatever it is. Almost one alarm per 100 square feet. But, yeah.
Hey, Mike, real quick, this is Seth again.
Yeah.
What is the intent of the full fire alarm system as it relates to a residential occupancy? Is it basically what they have in place, or is the intent to have, like, at Terlato, they have detection in every room that's monitored by a fire alarm. It's got a fire alarm panel and pull stations. It's not exactly clear what is intended by it. I know what the code requires, but I don't know if the amendment is meant to go beyond the minimum code requirements.
Yeah, and no, I think for this type of, use, a townhome or apartment or single-family home, that full fire alarm is not meant to require anything above what the minimum that you listed there.
Okay.
It's just that. So is that, are you done, Seth? With yours, or did you have more you want to say?
Yeah, basically, we're done. We, the applicant did touch on this, and maybe I can comment a little more on it. Because it's considered an R2 occupancy with 3, units, the sprinkler system that the contractor proposed is not the proper kind. And so we estimate that actually putting in the 13R system, which is, again, the same type of sprinkler system that you would have in any apartment building of any size. So as you can imagine, that would be quite a bit more robust and have some additional features and things. So we anticipate that being a lot more costly than the contractor's original bid. But we did go ahead and put the option in there for something for the board to consider. If the board is going to require a sprinkler system, they could decide to let them put in a 13D system, which again is more the type of sprinkler system for single-family homes, which again, I think we can all be on the same page. These are basically single-family homes. So that could be an option as well. So I just wanted to point that out, and feel free to ask any questions if you have. This is a little bit of a unique case. It is a multifamily, but like the applicant said, it's only 3 units instead of 2, but it is what it is. I mean, this was, as Mike can probably tell you, or maybe some of you board members recall, that when these amendments went into place many years ago, it was meant to cover anything with 3 units or more. and these buildings were classified or counted as being in that group of requiring sprinkler systems. And so I'll leave it at that, and just let you guys ask me any questions you may have.
Okay, staff, Mike?
Yeah, so I'll summarize the staff recommendation here. So staff is not making a recommendation for or against. There's a lot of factors for the board to weigh here. I will say that if you do decide to recommend for the exemption, we'd recommend having a condition to have staff, inspect and verify that the smoke detector systems are all working and in place in everybody's unit. But aside from that, staff would be fine with the 13D system, given that the drawings show that the firewall goes up to the bottom of the roof deck, assuming the attics are separated like that, or that could be done if they aren't done per plan today. We would be fine with the 13D system there. Factors for the board to weigh is, this is obviously a residential occupancy, R2, and most of the fire deaths in the U.S. are in residential occupancies, so that's something to consider. Obviously, on the other side of the coin, it's very expensive and disruptive to install sprinklers in existing units. There's no doubt about that. This is actually the last building on the list of that's residential, that is on the list of sprinklers required. And so 14 buildings since the retrofit mandate was first passed in 2005. There have been 14 residential buildings that have complied. 2 of those were mixed-use buildings, and the other 12 were all residential. Out of those, 10 of them were single-family buildings that I would assume, had some attic access, so had less need to cut up ceilings and all that to get sprinklers in. So there's only been 2 all-residential, 2-story buildings that have had to do it so far, for what that's worth.
Which 2 are those, Mike? What are the 2 stories?
That would be 7 East Washington and 16 East Washington.
Okay, those are the subsidized housing.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And I think that's it.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with an exemption, but I would like to see an automatic fire alarm system put in the building. Because as I understand it, you've got independent smoke alarms that are not connected to the fire department. And I would prefer to see an automatic sprinkler, fire alarm system put in.
I would agree. I think the proximity to the fire department is compelling. It's very close, and I would think you could just have the notification go right to the fire department, can't you? I mean, they can just look out the window and see if the building's on fire.
That's an old-fashioned system. Everything goes to a central station.
Yell out the window.
These days, and the central station calls the fire department.
Okay, but not necessarily the property manager.
Right, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, every monitored systems go to a central station, and the central station makes the phone call to the fire department.
Is there a property manager?
So we're a self-managed association. I manage my units. My dad manages his. And Terry and Matt are owner occupants.
Okay.
A question about the alarm system. So you said a central station.
Yeah,
They would get the call.
right.
What are they?
So
what are they
yeah,
answering? I mean,
that's
they
a
wouldn't know if
UL
they're-
listed organization that follows, UL certification criteria for it. And my understanding is that they are generally making 2 calls at once. There's probably 2 different people there, and one person's calling the fire department and the other person's calling the property manager. Is I believe the way it works. Seth, is that your understanding of a central station?
Yeah, they usually do dispatch, and then they're also calling the property owner listed as well to let them know, because there's different types of signals that those things receive. Depending on the system itself, there might be a supervisory system notification that goes out, which is just It could be an error in the system, or it could detect something else, for example, and send a signal, and they won't call the fire department for that. But if there's a smoke alarm signal that goes, or a heat signal that goes, then they're going to dispatch to the fire department and call the owner.
Sue?
Go ahead.
Were you done, Scott?
I was done, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to be probably going against the grain here, and I definitely apologize for this, but I'm a sprinkler person. I just feel since there are people sleeping there, tenants, kids, pets, that it's just my own conscience, I think, prevents me from saying, not only that, but I think all the other people who came here who complied, I'm just, even out of fairness for them. And I also feel like, I understand that it's certainly expensive, I really do, but I also know that, or I think that there's been more than just a few months to prepare for this and to know that it's coming. So I feel like that in and of itself, if there's that much time to kind of get your ducks in a row, or get loans, or save money, or I understand it's a small business, and I know there's an expense, but I just feel like that's just not, when safety, people's lives are at stake, I just feel like that's just, for me, doesn't weigh that well. So for me, I would be fine with the NFPA 13D option, and certainly if it doesn't go that way, and I'm the only one voting that way, then absolutely the fire, alarm, and going right to wherever and getting people there as fast as possible. So I apologize, because I know it's rough. I'm part of an association too, in a different situation. I know what that can be, but just for my own conscience.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm pretty familiar with that building, because I had a relative that lived in there. So these things are 22 by 22, something like that. I'd say if you were on the second floor in the farthest bedroom, you're out of that building in under 10 seconds. And, I don't see how a central alarm system works in something where you have 3 units that are 22 by 22 by 2 feet, or 2 stories. And some of them have, do they all have finished basements?
4 of the 6 do.
Okay.
But there's no
Anyway,
bedrooms.
But those are not occupied
Yeah, those are not,
spaces,
right.
Yeah.
But sorry to interrupt, but
Anyway, it's being very familiar with the layout and the construction of that. It's a shutdown to do whatever kind of sprinklers you'd have to put in there, unless you exposed it. And then all you have to do is buy the fire pump and everything else, which is no place to put it, as far as I can think of. So that's kind of my thinking. And the central alarm system, who's got it? There's 6 units. Does everybody have one? And these are not, correct me if I'm wrong, Bradley, they're not necessarily family units. I know that 2 people that own are single people, right?
they are single people, and, the occupancy load would withstand up to 30 people total in the 2 buildings. We're at 9 right now, so we're well below the occupancy load. And I guess while I have the podium again, I just want to touch on the egress distance that you were talking about. My understanding is the maximum of 200 feet. And what you were saying, the distance from the furthest bedroom to, on the, second floor to the top of the staircase is about 8 feet. Then you go down 10 steps and you're another 3 feet to the front door, so.
So I'm saying in less than 10 seconds, you're out of the building.
Oh, yeah, 2 seconds, yeah. I mean, you're very, very close. I think the proximity to the fire station, 278 yards, I measured it on Google Earth, provides immediate response time. And, but yeah, the egress distance is what I wanted to touch on.
So, wait, let me ask, so you're saying, so with the smoke detectors, what's there now are the smoke detectors that you see just in every room and battery operated?
yeah.
Are there
It's like what most people have in their houses.
Yep.
battery
Do you
or,
have any other direct
10-year
connected?
battery life smoke detectors that are required now.
so they have batteries, what you're saying, each one?
Correct, yeah.
And,
I mean, we could have those hardwired if
Hardwired.
that would be more appropriate.
I just feel like if you're having, this is just me again, if you're having renters, I mean, I know sometimes mine beeps and I'm like, I can't take it, and so I'll like take it out and take the battery out and like, I don't know if you're not inspecting them or if
Look,
someone's
I'm
in.
very hands-on with my units. I live on Scranton Avenue, 2 minutes away. I work on Scranton Avenue in our real estate office at 80 Scranton, directly just north of where this building is. I'm there all the time. I'm happy to provide references to my tenants to speak on behalf of that. My dad who owns his units, he's on Prospect Avenue, just as close as I am. We take very good care of our properties.
And
I
and-
wouldn't want you to look at it as just like an investment property. This was my first home. Terry Black has owned and occupied hers for 34 years. Matt Jenkins has owned and occupied his for 25 years. So I think there's, thinking about the logistics of retrofitting these units, these people would have to find new places to live. It wouldn't be, I don't see how it'd be possible to do this while people are living there. One of my tenants, for example, is a young couple. They have a 9-month-old baby. I have an 11-month-old baby right now, so I'm going through raising a child, so I don't understand how they would be able to care for their child. And in the estimate we got from USA Fire, it says that, they'd have to move the furniture to different rooms before each workday can begin. So, I mean, how would they be able to do that with a baby, moving their crib back and forth every day, managing naps, and, I just think operationally and financially, it's
Difficult.
impractical.
I have a quick question for you, Mike. So, if we grant an exemption to a building, does that mean that that exemption stays in place until there's work done or something to trigger it back? Like if there's a new owner, like let's say you decide, okay, I'm going to move to California or something, and someone else buys the property. Does that exemption stay in place or?
It does. It stays with the property. So there is, it doesn't, it's an exemption from our January 1st, 2026 retrofit requirement. So there's a separate set of requirements in the International Existing Building Code if you're remodeling a certain percentage of the building, for retrofitting. Although I'm not sure, I looked at that for businesses in relation to things we've had before us before. I'm not sure if there really is such a thing for residential like this. But if there were, that would still be in effect, but the exemption, lasts for, as long as it's this use for the January 21st, 2026 retrofit date.
So if someone else bought the building who was not as conscientious and lovely, that exemption would still be there?
It'd still be there, yeah. Right.
If I'm correct, the two people that own the building, besides what Brad and Bradley own, they would be subject to their portion of it.
Correct, yeah.
I'm just going by looking at, my familiarity with the building, but also the comment from Seth that in his conclusion, that the occupant loads are relatively low. We believe the retrofit installation cost of an automatic fire sprinkler system is relatively high in proportion to the life safety benefits. And I happen to agree with that.
Yeah. The other thing worth mentioning is, smoke detectors these days, now state law requires everyone to be on the 10-year sealed smoke detectors, so we don't have to change batteries, with every time change, spring and fall, anymore for smoke detectors. They've got a 10-year life, sure.
I'm Brad Anderson, 511 East Prospect, and my wife and I own 2 of the units in the building. and Brady owns the other two, and the last two are owner occupied. Our leases all require that there's working smoke and carbon monoxide detectors in the units, and we're happy to comply with that and enforce that on a regular basis. I'd also be willing to require all of our tenants to have a smoke fire extinguisher in the units on top of the smoke alarms. So, and the other thing that I should bring up is that the party walls, the common walls, because these buildings are offset, are only about a 10 or 12-foot section where those 2 layers of fire-rated drywall are installed. So, and it's also along the wet walls. So it's really a very small area of possible penetration from one unit to the next. And because they're called condominiums because of their, how they were titled, but they're really townhouses. There's no adjacent party living above a unit next to it. They're all, first and second floor units, vertical. So those are my only comments.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
So where are we?
So one thing to be aware of,
Just so
Courtney, you
it's
had-
clear, yeah, just so it's
right.
clear, so we are operating with
Yeah.
only 4 members
Thank you.
tonight.
I was just going to try.
Yes, yeah, I was waiting until the end. We are operating with 4 members tonight. It is a 7-member board. And so the village code requires that the exemption passes with 4. So an exemption we will need 4 votes. There is an appeal process to the village board if it doesn't pass for the applicant, where the village board would then hear the application, but in order for a sprinkler exemption to be granted, there must be 4 votes from members of the ABR. And so since we have 4, it will need to be unanimous tonight.
Oh.
Sorry. Other options are, if you wanted to continue to another meeting, then, if we needed more, we would have more bodies. That's always a possibility as well, if the board wanted to continue this application to a different meeting where we would maybe have more members here, where again, the applicant would still only need 4. So that's another option. We can always add additional conditions, if that would help as well. So I'm just want to make sure the board is aware of all options. Those are some.
So let me ask you a question. If we were to take a vote right now and it was 2-4 or 2-2 or 3-2, whatever it is that a final thing? Then there's no alternative. Or if we could we do a polling? And they say, okay, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And then let the applicant decide if they want to pursue the next meeting where we might all be here.
Certainly. So you can take a straw poll to see where the board members stand on that, to get an idea. We just wouldn't want to take final action in the form of a formal motion.
That's my point. Right.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. That will close the application, which would then trigger the appeal process for the applicant to go to the village board. So it's not like it's final. There is an appeal process where the village board could hear it. They could also make a determination. They could also kick it back to the ABR for subsequent review. So that would be up to the village board. I can't speak to how they would do, but you can certainly take a straw poll to see where everyone's at and ask the applicant if that would be something they would be interested in, as well as continuing and coming back to a subsequent meeting if more people are here. But as long as we're not taking final action on a formal motion to approve or deny the exemption, we can certainly discuss amongst the members on a straw poll on what everyone wants to do and have the applicant's input as well.
Okay, what do you think? So all you do is draw a poll. You ask people, what do you think? Everybody's,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right, yep.
Yeah.
you do a straw poll.
That's not, I'm just here to give you the options, Bob.
Are there any questions?
I think
can
we
help
just did
answer
one.
to
Yeah.
I think,
better
you've done a
understand
great
our-
job,
Our
really.
building and
Yeah.
association.
Do you have any objection to what we're just talking about?
I understand what you're talking about, yeah.
And we're kind of in a bind because there's only 4 of us tonight, which is the
Right.
first time in a long time that that's
Yeah.
happened.
Right,
I
yeah.
understand.
So-
It was
so
just-
what do you
just
think?
spring break, so.
Okay, so I'm sorry, but I still have I want to be able to sleep at night, and if anything happened to anyone, even a cat, I just wouldn't be able to live with myself. So I apologize. I would vote at this point to go with the NEPA 13D option, and then, I mean, I think that's just where I stand. So I would love it if we could sort of reconvene and have more people here and have it not
Explain,
my fault.
Scott, where are you at?
I would be in favor of the exemption, but I think it should be a monitored system. I mean, I know a lot of people that have monitored systems in their house, and nobody complains about how expensive they are. I think you could
Yeah.
probably put one sensor in each unit, and you have 6 people who could split the bill. So I would be in favor of a monitored system.
That would be my second choice.
So it sounds like what you're describing is to do a monitored system separate from the system that covers all the bedrooms and the
Correct.
hallway and all that.
So you'd
as
have
a
the
supplemental
wireless
monitored
interconnected in
center.
each unit,
Yeah.
but then just have one sensor in each unit.
Or it's not
that-
up to the
that reports to
tenants.
the,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and the way Trelato described what they have, they're all, they're battery operated and they're wires. They're wireless, rather.
Yeah.
They don't have a whole bunch of wires that they put in all over the place.
Yeah.
It's,
Be pretty
and
simple to
I don't
install
think
it.
there's another community in our area, I know Highland Park and Lake Forest would not allow it without at least an alarm system. I have an alarm system in my own home. I have a 6-unit apartment building in Highland Park where my office is, that the city required I put an alarm system in. And I am in favor of the exemption. So you and I agree. I'm in favor of the exemption, but I would like to see an alarm system put in.
You'd be in favor of it with the alarm system?
I'm not sure what the alarm system is.
Well, the
It's like
system.
key security. I mean,
Yeah.
there's lots of people that can do it.
The system Scott describes, the thing that makes me a little bit nervous about that is I'm just a little bit nervous that a resident of a unit will misunderstand about having that one monitor detector and think they don't need their others that are part of a separate system. That's what makes me a little bit nervous about having 2 separate systems in a unit. You know, because people go out to, an alarm company and get, that one unit, and then their alarm company tells them, oh, we're providing your alarm, and then they think, oh, I can just take these others off my ceiling and toss them out, but they really don't understand they need the ones in
Yeah.
each bedroom, each hallway, all that too. But because those are
But
the
they have
ones.
that in the lease,
Those are the
so-
ones that are gonna wake them up, so it's important. Yeah, and maybe that can be done through education in these units when you have, landlords who are educating their tenants on that to make sure they understand, but that's the only thing that makes me a little bit nervous, because the other system is the one that's really gonna wake everybody up, because it has alarms in every bedroom,
Right.
I'd be very hesitant to count on the landlord trying to educate the tenants what to do in case of a fire. The tenant will forget everything. I've had that experience happen where a fire started in a multifamily building. It started because a woman left some things in a linen closet that had a bare bulb. They had fallen against the door was open, the light was on, and smoke started coming out. She went over and opened the door, burst into flames. She ran talk about forgetting what to do. She ran to the sink and spent the time filling a pot with water so she could go back and throw it on it. Didn't help at all. So she ran out of the door and left the front door open and took her children with her, and then went outside and left that door open. Neither of them had closures on them. That fire would never have spread. Had she taken the door in the first place in the linen closet and just shut it, probably nothing would have happened. It would have smothered itself. It's just, you can't count on, in an emergency, on somebody remembering everything they're supposed to do. I would think that most alarm companies would come in and want more than one detector in the unit. In other words, like you said, sit in a hallway upstairs, somewhere like that, so you'd have to have at least two, and they don't have to be wired. That's what Tolato has. They don't have a wired system.
Right.
Well, I'd like to propose that we come back when there's more people here, so I can still vote my conscience, but maybe it'll still pass. I just don't want to be the person who makes you do this, but I just don't think I could sleep.
The alternate sprinkler system that Sue was talking about, that's still a destructive thing.
Yeah, right, you still have to get pipes everywhere.
Yeah, so
Right.
people have to move up.
It's plastic pipes,
Yeah.
so they're less
Yeah.
expensive, but yeah, you're still running pipes
Okay.
everywhere. Yep.
And how long would people have to be out?
Well, I mean, it's, I don't know, I
Couple
think.
days?
Well, I mean, you have the sprinkler company gonna spend a couple days there, but then you gotta get your drywall and painter guys back to put the drywall back and then paint. Seth, were you gonna say something about that?
If you want me to.
Well, no, I thought you heard you start to say something is the only reason I asked, so.
Oh,
if that
no,
wasn't-
I was not gonna say something.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be disruptive, obviously. As far as how many days, it depends on how they stage it. Like if they do the whole building all at once, or if they do one unit at a time. I mean, there's just many different ways to skin the cat, as they say. But, maybe if you do decide to table this and come back next meeting, you can ask the contractor to provide a schedule on how they would accomplish it and what it would take, for the sprinkler contractor, the plumber, and then you've got a finisher that's got to come back in and patch all the drywall, tape, mud, paint, do all that. You could ask for a full schedule.
You're in the business of getting stuff built. What would you say it would take?
Oh, it's definitely invasive. Brady's right. I mean, they sprinkler company comes, and we just did one in Lake Forest and in a basement, and there's lines where they put in all the sprinkler lines, and you do have to get an electrician involved, and drywallers and painters and mill workers, and so it's
Yeah,
pretty.
nobody
It's
shows
a
up when they're
process.
supposed to, and-
Yeah, it's a process for sure.
So it could easily be 2 months.
Yeah,
That would be my shot.
yeah.
Yeah, I had asked USA Fire about that, and they said just to do their work of opening walls and putting pipes in would be 6 to 8 weeks, but that doesn't include new water service, tearing up the sidewalk, putting the water line in, digging the trench, taking the courtyard out, and then us having to hire, plumber, electrician, painters, drywallers, all those people to put the interiors of the units back together, and then putting the exteriors back together. So that was just the gentleman who came and walked through the units and gave us an estimate. That's what he said, just for the NFPA 13D system, timeline would be about to be. But again, that's not putting things back together. So this would be displacing people, owners, and all the occupants for a long period of time.
Could I suggest that you ask an alarm company to come out and get a quote on what it would cost to put 2 detectors in each unit that are connected directly to the fire department?
Sure, we can do that.
That's not going to be cheap either. Not as expensive as the
Yeah.
sprinklers, but
We mean a monitored system. There is no more direct connections to the fire department.
Well,
Among
monitored
many
is what I
reasons
meant.
is for emergency redundancy. The dispatch and all that can happen from different locations, but that means there's no more copper wire directly to the fire department. It doesn't exist anymore.
right, monitored
I
is what
think
I meant.
I would be interested in the different options for the alarm, other than just something that's stuck there with a battery in it. I would definitely be interested in what that is or could be.
Yeah, I mean, you could do a hardwired system, which is what, for new construction, what we're requiring.
Yeah.
And there could be a monitored system, where everything's monitored. Although the most important function of a system is just sounding in the residence to wake people up and get them out, which is the
Exactly.
monitoring, calling the fire department.
The hardwired
doesn't
system
do
now,
that.
that
right.
becomes destructive too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. I mean, you can snake a wire through a lot more easily than a
Yeah, if you can,
right, than a pipe, but,
Right.
yeah, it is still somewhat destructive.
I mean, you can almost get a fire truck there as fast as a sprinkler would go off if they were notified,
I think, for me, I think it's, and I would have voted, I would have had the same
we're not trying to
hesitation.
blackmail you, Sue.
I know, I feel like, oh, God. I think for me, I would have felt the same way about the Torlados if there were people sleeping there. For me, it's the sleeping of people, kids, pets, all that. I think that's my main hesitation with it. I think if you're like the woman with the closet and you're awake and you can get out, I agree. Then the fire department could come, and if things are destroyed, then that's a cost of fixing, that's fine. I'm not worried about that. I think it's just the idea of me voting to not have something that's sort of foolproof or much more safe when people might be asleep or kids might be asleep or pets might be asleep. I think that's my hesitation. And I just know, even with our hardwired fire detectors, sometimes they beep and we've actually kind of hacked them off the ceiling because we couldn't figure out how to make it stop. People do stuff like that, or especially if they're tenants and the battery wore out and, I don't know, it just makes me really uncomfortable. and feeling responsible, I think, is part of it.
If they're a monitored system and somebody disconnects it or something like that, it's going to send a signal to the monitoring company.
That makes me feel better.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
That's
do
just
have-
where I that's just where I stand, and I don't know. I mean, I maybe could get past it if it was very tenant-proof as far as tampering, and it would wake up people and people would come. You know what I mean? I mean, I get that it's close to the fire department. I understand all of that. And I also feel bad for all the people who came before you who were in your same boat and your same level of finances that did go ahead and do this. There's that for me too, because I have this overdeveloped sense of fairness. And so I think, I don't know, because I'm the oldest in my family, I don't know what it is, but I just feel like it's not fair, so there's that. So I don't know. Sorry, I feel like I'm gonna burst into tears. I'm sorry, I really am. I feel terrible.
What are you
continue it?
thinking after hearing all this stuff?
I think we'll table this.
But can I get a clarification on the straw poll? Obviously, you're in favor of a wet sprinkler system.
I'm in favor of the NFPA 13D.
And do you understand how destructive that is based on the estimate?
I do.
Okay.
I do. And I just don't feel like you can put a price on someone's life.
Okay,
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So I'm sorry. I really am.
and Scott, you're in favor of an alarm system tied to the
Yeah.
fire department?
That would be my second
Yeah,
choice.
yeah.
Okay, monitor system and Bob?
I guess I have more faith in the 10-year battery system. That's what I've got at home. I got three hardwired, and the rest of them they're just dandy.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought them all and replaced them all when they came out with the 10-year thing. So I have about 8 of them, maybe more. I don't know.
And Mr. Dolman, I didn't hear you. I couldn't hear what your decision was.
Oh, I said I'm in favor of the exemption, provided that a monitored alarm system is installed.
Okay. So we need 4 votes tonight to get an exemption, and if we table it till the next ABR meeting,
There's-
hopefully we'll have 2 more people. We still only need 4 votes.
Right.
Right, you need the majority, so it's 4 out of 7.
Correct.
We would ask to table it and reschedule.
So that's a risk, but maybe not. But in the meantime, you might want to investigate this alarm system.
That would be great.
Yeah, so do we contact you, Mike, about scheduling the next meeting? Is it,
Yeah, so we should make a motion to a date tonight. So, yeah, so the next meeting is May 6th, if that works
Yeah.
for you.
Is it a motion to table it?
Who's on
or
vacation?
to
Well, I was just gonna say,
continue it?
I might not be here. Let me check. I mean, I seriously might not.
All right, May 6th?
Yeah.
I'll be out of town.
You what?
I'll be out of town.
Okay, there's no guarantee.
There's no guarantee.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's,
So would someone like to make a motion?
yeah.
To continue it to a
So we
date?
continue this till May 6th.
I move that we continue it till May 6th.
I second.
Aye.
We
should take
a, roll call vote on
Okay,
Roll call vote.
okay.
So
5, 6, yep, I'll do that. Okay, so Member Dahlman,
Aye.
Member Stradiff,
Aye.
Member Works,
Aye.
and Chair Hunter.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
thank you all for your time.
Okay.
Okay, so, should we make a motion to adjourn?
You got anything else?
I don't have anything else.
Okay, then we'll make a motion to adjourn, because
All
he's
in
going
favor?
out the door.
I vote that we.
Aye. I'm in favor.
Okay. All in favor, meeting's adjourned.
everyone vote, okay.
Okay.